The story begins with a group of explorers who are in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. On that ship, there is a weather officer named David, whose job is to report on weather conditions. They are heading toward an island located right in the middle of the ocean. The government has sent David there so that he can observe the island's changing weather. David is supposed to stay there for almost 1 year. He has to collect weather data for the entire year and then return after completing this task. David has been provided with food for the whole year and all necessary supplies. After many days of travel, they finally reach the island. With the help of a boat, they land on the island. The island is completely deserted. Not even a single bird can be seen there. On the island, there is a lighthouse and a small house where David is supposed to live. This is because earlier, a weather officer named Robert used to live here, but now his duty period has ended. He spent 1 full year alone on this island collecting weather data. Now, in his place, David will stay here for a full year to collect weather data, and the old officer Robert will return with the ship. But when the entire team visits the house, they are shocked because there is no sign of any human presence there. Inside the room, all of the old officer's belongings are scattered everywhere. After this, the captain and David think that maybe someone could be in the lighthouse. Without wasting any time, the captain and David head toward the lighthouse, and there they see a strange sight. They see that the entire lighthouse is surrounded by sharp, pointed wooden spikes, as if someone deliberately sealed it off so that no one could enter. After this, the captain and David knock on the lighthouse gate several times, but there is no response from inside. Finally, they push the gate forcefully and enter inside. Inside the lighthouse, they find a man named Gruner. When they ask Gruner about the old weather officer Robert, he replies that Robert is dead. He went toward the sea but never returned. Hearing this, both David and the captain are shocked. After hearing everything, the captain tells David that if he still wants, he can return with them. But David refuses to go back. David thinks that if he can give the government an accurate weather report of the island, he could earn a very large amount of money. After this, the captain gives David a gun for self-protection and tells him that this place does not seem safe to him and that David should take care of himself. Then they leave him there and return, saying they will come back again after 1 year. After the captain leaves, David settles the house a bit and makes it livable. When night falls, he finds a diary in a drawer that belonged to the old weather officer Robert. In that diary, a lot is written about the island. There are also some mentions of a mysterious creature, but everything is not clearly explained. Some things are incomplete. David reads every line carefully. In the diary, there are also sketches of some strange kinds of animals. David does not understand why Robert made such pictures. Perhaps he was lonely and did this just to pass time. On one page of the diary, there is also a photo of the old officer's wife. While reading the diary, David gets tired and slowly falls asleep. The next morning, David begins collecting weather data, but as soon as he reaches near the sea, his steps stop. He sees that between the rocks, some stones are arranged in a strange way, with shells placed among them, forming a strange pattern. David thinks that maybe Gruner did all this. Thinking this, he goes back to his work. While working, when he looks toward the lighthouse through binoculars, he sees Gruner along with another person. But in the blink of an eye, that person disappears. David tries to look again, but then he feels that it might have been his imagination. At night, David is busy with his work when there is a knock on the door. He thinks it might be Gruner. David calls out his name, but there is no response. Holding a lamp in his hand, as soon as David moves toward the door, strange sounds begin echoing in his ears, sounds that are not human at all. Then he sees that from beneath the gate, the hand of some strange creature is trying to come inside. It is not a human hand at all. Seeing this, David is terrified. He immediately runs toward the basement and hides there. Within moments, that mysterious creature enters the house. It starts searching for David while hiding, and David watches it through a small crack in the basement. Because of David's movement, the creature notices him. After that, the creature runs toward David to kill him and tries to grab him through the crack. To save himself, David immediately picks up a knife and stabs the creature in the eye. The creature screams and runs away, but it could come back at any time, and in David's mind it becomes confirmed that what was written in the diary about the creature was true. Out of fear, he cannot sleep the entire night. The next morning, when David goes outside the house, he sees footprints on the sand that are not human at all. Those footprints go straight toward the sea and end there. Now David understands why Gruner placed sharp wooden spikes around the lighthouse. David now realizes that if he stays in this house, those creatures could kill him at any time. Out of fear, David runs toward the lighthouse and shouts at Gruner to open the gate and let him inside. But Gruner does not let him enter and says that David should have returned with the ship. Disappointed, David returns because Gruner does not even want him near the lighthouse. Gruner throws water on him and tells him to go away. Now David has to do something on his own. He boards up every window of the house with wood, builds a barricade of sharp wooden spikes all around, and places old papers and books outside the gate. Then he pours oil on them so that if the creature comes back, he can scare it away with fire. But there is one thing David still does not know, and he is going to find out tonight. Luckily, he finds an old box inside the house. Inside the box, there is a gun and a lot of bullets. Seeing this, he gets a small hope of surviving. As the sun begins to set, fear grows in David's heart. Soon, darkness spreads everywhere. David sits quietly in a corner of the house, holding the gun in his hand. His heartbeat is fast. Suddenly, he hears a strange sound, and when David secretly looks toward the sea through the window, it feels as if the ground slips from under his feet. He sees that not just one, but many of those strange creatures are coming toward him from the water. Within moments, they gather together and start trying to break the door of the room. David immediately starts firing bullets, and some of the creatures fall and die. David thinks that after hearing the sound of gunfire, they will get scared and run away. But seeing their companions dying, they become even more enraged. Then David uses his plan and sets fire to the papers and old books placed outside the gate. Seeing the fire, the creatures retreat back into the sea out of fear. But now that same fire reaches David's house, the door catches fire and it starts spreading slowly because the entire house is made of wood. David immediately wraps himself in a sheet to save his life and runs outside, hiding behind a large rock near the lighthouse. While shooting the creatures, David also suffers a deep injury to his hand. Suddenly, heavy rain starts pouring. Slowly, the fire begins to die out. But even after rain all night, by morning David is unable to save his house. The entire house is almost reduced to ashes. Now, if David wants to stay alive, he must take shelter in the lighthouse. He picks up his rifle and hides among the rocks near the lighthouse, waiting for the moment when Gruner comes out to fetch water. When Gruner comes out of the lighthouse to fill water, David follows him quietly. But suddenly, a strange creature that was near Gruner attacks David. Somehow, David manages to control it. That creature is Gruner's protector. When David is about to shoot it, Gruner immediately stops him and says, "Stop, this is my pet." David does not fire and takes advantage of the situation to put a condition before Gruner. If he wants the creature to stay alive, then David must be allowed to live in the lighthouse. Otherwise, he will kill it. Gruner agrees because David has plenty of food and gunpowder. Before evening, both of them return to the lighthouse with the remaining food, and they both sleep peacefully. The next morning, the creature is quietly licking David's hand. When David wakes up, he sees that because of the creature's licking, his hand has completely healed. Seeing this, David is shocked. Now David wants to know more about this creature from Gruner and then bring all this before the world, because it is nothing short of magic. David thinks that if they reveal the secret of this creature to the world, both David and Gruner will earn a lot of money and fame. But Gruner does not want any of this. He does not want to leave the island. He has no one left in this world. For him, this island is perfect, where he considers himself a king and the master of his own will. That is why he has written in many places on the island that Gruner is the king here. But David does not understand how this strange creature became Gruner's pet. Gruner explains that once he saved the creature's life, it had accidentally gotten trapped in his fishing net. At that time, the creature was small, and from that day onward, it stayed with Gruner and began obeying him. But Gruner is a harsh man. He treats the creature very badly. Gruner has physical relations with the creature every day. Gruner tells David that once the creature even attacked him, and in return, Gruner punished it so severely that after that punishment, the creature began to consider itself Gruner's slave. And by now, everyone would have understood why those creatures come out of the sea every night. They all come to rescue their companion and take her back from Gruner. But Gruner does not let that happen. Those creatures cannot attack in daylight because sunlight burns their skin. David no longer wants to stay here. He wants to escape from the island somehow. Evening approaches, and Gruner tells him to get ready with the gun because the creatures can attack at any time. They prepare to turn on the lighthouse light, and soon a large number of creatures emerge from the sea. They keep moving toward the lighthouse. Gruner keeps firing at them continuously, but David becomes completely terrified. He starts moving inside the lighthouse. Despite Gruner repeatedly telling him to fight, David just sits quietly in a corner, and after some time, he faints. Gruner fights the creatures alone throughout the night. The next morning, in anger, Gruner throws water on David's face to wake him and says, "If you want to stay alive, you will have to kill them. Otherwise, you will be thrown out of the lighthouse, and you will have to obey everything I say. You will fetch water every day, do all the small and big tasks of the lighthouse, and stand guard with me at night." Now David has no other option. That is why all this becomes his compulsion. David starts obeying everything Gruner says. But one thing he absolutely does not like is that every day Gruner physically tortures the female creature in different ways. Night falls. Both of them again get ready for guard duty, and once again the creatures come out of the sea. But today, David is not scared. He starts firing at the creatures. But today, Gruner does nothing. He shuts the lighthouse gate, leaving David outside, and sits quietly inside so that David can learn on his own how to fight these creatures. In this way, while fighting, David survives the night, and morning comes. In the morning, Gruner sees David sitting outside the lighthouse gate, covered in blood. Now he has learned how to fight these creatures. Time passes like this. Fighting the creatures at night and handling the lighthouse work for Gruner during the day. The island becomes like a prison for David. He constantly thinks about when he will leave this place and breathe freely again. Over time, David develops a strange friendship with the female creature. He begins to feel bad for her. Now he understands how difficult it is to live alone after being separated from one's people. Perhaps the creature feels the same way. David even gives the creature a name, Anarius. Days pass like this, and then one day they notice that the attacks by the creatures are gradually decreasing. David thinks that maybe they go somewhere else in winter, or maybe they have understood that fighting these two will achieve nothing. But Gruner tells him that this is not the case. They will attack again. They are increasing their numbers. A few more days pass. One night after dinner, Gruner and David start playing chess to pass time. But here, Gruner makes a big mistake. They get so engrossed in the game that they forget to turn on the lighthouse lights. Taking advantage of the darkness, the creatures attack them. David sees that the number of creatures is so large that even two people together cannot fight them for long. And this time they have no planning either. The bullets are almost finished. Somehow, they manage to reach the top of the lighthouse. But in the process, Gruner's leg gets badly injured. Today, the creatures overpower them. Both think that their death is certain. But luckily, morning arrives. As the sun slowly rises, the creatures leave the lighthouse and return to the sea. After the harsh sunlight comes out, Anarius tries to heal Gruner's wounds. By now, David understands that they cannot win this fight against the creatures. The bullets are nearly finished, and they do not have enough food to last long. Luckily, the next day, while David is wandering outside the lighthouse, he sees a ship in the sea. He quickly brings a flare gun and goes to signal the ship, but Gruner stops him because he does not want David to leave. At that moment, Anarius attacks Gruner. She wants to protect David from him. Gruner does not want to let anyone leave the island. This island is his own world, where he lives like a king. He does not want to let David go either. After being alone for so long, he finally has someone to talk to, and if David goes back on that ship, he will tell everyone about Anarius and the others. So now David cannot leave. Slowly, the ship disappears into the sea before David's eyes. Now he has nothing left to do. A few more days pass like this. Gruner continues to mistreat both David and Anarius, but he especially beats Anarius, which David absolutely cannot tolerate. One day, David gifts Anarius a small toy boat that he made from a fishbone. But when Anarius sees the boat, she takes David to a corner of the island where there is actually a real boat. When David asks Gruner about this boat, Gruner says that yes, he already knew there was a boat in that part of the island. Gruner says that some people once came to this island by boat to save their lives, but before morning came, none of them survived. All were killed by these creatures. They were transporting ammunition on their ship, but due to a storm at sea, their ship sank near this island. Hearing this, an idea comes to David's mind. They have something like a diving suit. David says that if one of them wears the suit and goes to the part of the sea where the ship sank, they might find some bullets or dynamite, which would make fighting the creatures easier. But Gruner refuses to agree. Still, David is ready to risk his life to do this. A few more days pass. David and Anarius develop a deep connection. David starts liking her. Gruner secretly sees them being intimate. Gruner feels that Anarius will be taken away from him, so David must be removed from the way. The next day, Gruner agrees to David's plan. He tells David that he will wear the suit, go underwater, and collect a lot of RDX, and then Gruner will pull him back up with the boat. But Gruner's real intention is something else. He wants David to bring the dynamite boxes from under the sea to the surface and then leave him alone in the sea so that the creatures kill him. This way, Gruner will get the dynamite, and Anarius will become his slave again. They both sit in the boat and reach the place where the ship had sunk. David wears the diving suit and goes underwater. After going down, David sees that the ship is completely destroyed, but he is lucky to find some boxes of dynamite. Suddenly, some creatures appear in front of him. Seeing them, David panics and falls. The diving suit is so heavy that he cannot even move, and he is also unable to send any signal to Gruner above. Gruner thinks that the creatures must have killed David, but in reality, they are just two small children. David somehow manages to leave the diving suit there and reach the surface by himself. There, he finds some old boxes containing dynamite. After this, both of them get to work. They lay 2 layers of dynamite around the lighthouse so that when the next attack happens, they can finish the monsters at once. A few months pass, and the season of snowfall arrives. But once again, the creatures disappear. The attacks suddenly stop, as if the creatures have found out that a trap has been laid for them, and that is why they are not attacking. Gruner feels that maybe Anarius warned the creatures, and because of this, he starts torturing Anarius. But David stops him. In the end, Both of them make a new plan to leave the main gate of the lighthouse open so that as soon as the creatures come near, they can blow them up with dynamite. David cleverly tells Anarius to scream from the top of the lighthouse. Hearing her voice, all the creatures become furious. When the creatures see that the main gate of the lighthouse is open, they think it is a good opportunity to rescue Anarius, but in reality, it is a trap for them. Soon, the creatures start coming out of the sea. They move straight toward the main gate and, as soon as they enter, they attack David. David shows courage and manages to free himself from the creature. When all the creatures reach near the lighthouse, Gruner presses the dynamite lever, but there is no blast. In reality, David had disconnected the wire, and Gruner forgot to reconnect it. David immediately runs upstairs and starts reconnecting the dynamite wires. Meanwhile, the creatures try to climb the lighthouse, and only Gruner holds them back alone. As soon as the connection is complete, David blows up the first layer, killing many creatures in the blast. But still, many monsters remain ready to attack the lighthouse. Because of this, Gruner also blasts the second layer. Both of them lose consciousness in that massive explosion. The next morning, when they regain consciousness, they see that Anarius is not there. Dead creatures are lying all around. Gruner starts killing those that are still alive but injured. Suddenly, David notices a necklace hanging around the neck of one of the creatures. Seeing the creature writhing in pain, David feels pity and realizes his mistake. The creatures he had considered bloodthirsty until now were also like humans. They just could not speak. But for Gruner, all this is meaningless talk. After that day, the creatures never attack again. But every day, crying sounds are heard from the seashore. David still does not realize how much damage they have caused, how many families were destroyed, how many children lost their people just because of a misunderstanding. The next day, David sees some small children of those creatures near the sea, all of whom have lost their families. David makes a circular ring of stones and places the small toy boat in the center so that Anarius might see it and return. David waits for many hours, but Anarius never comes back. The next morning, after waking up, David sees that Gruner is sleeping. Near Gruner, there are some old belongings, including an old photograph. As soon as David sees the photo, he is shocked. The woman whose photo he had seen on the first day in Old Officer Robert's diary is none other than Gruner's wife, and in the photo, Gruner is standing beside her. In reality, the Weather Officer Robert who came a year ago did not die but changed his identity. Gruner himself is Weather Officer Robert. He just changed his name because he never wanted to leave the island. Seeing all this, David also gives up hope that he will ever leave this island. The next evening, when David goes to the seashore, he sees that the small boat placed in the stone circle is no longer there. But in that same place, he sees a small child of the creatures holding the boat in its hands. David throws a burning piece of wood into the center of the circle to show that he does not intend to fight and does not want anyone to feel threatened. He wants to be friends with them. After some time, Anarius emerges from the waves of the sea, and behind her, the entire group of creatures also comes out of the sea. But this time, none of them attack David, because they also want peace now. Their only intention is to find a safe place for their children. Just then, Gruner arrives there holding a gun. Gruner feels that if there is peace, how will he feel superior? David tries to explain to him that these creatures do not want to fight, they want peace. But Gruner does not listen to anyone. He shouts at Anarius to go inside. But this is the first time Anarius does not obey him, because now she is no longer his servant. Seeing this, Gruner feels that his kingship on the island is over. He starts feeling weak from inside because no one is obeying him anymore. In anger, he moves toward the lighthouse. David thinks that maybe Gruner has now understood that every living being wants freedom, and no one wants to live as someone's slave. But the obsession of kingship does not leave Gruner so easily. As soon as he reaches the lighthouse, he fires a flare from the signal gun, which goes straight and hits a creature's child. The child dies instantly. All the creatures run away in fear, and Anarius also loses all her trust in David. Enraged, David immediately runs toward the lighthouse to teach Gruner a lesson. David starts fighting with him, asking why he did all this when they only wanted peace. But Gruner has become so violent that he decides to kill David. As he is about to strike David with an iron rod, David calls him by his real name and says, "Stop, Robert. You are not a murderer." Hearing this, Gruner stops instantly. In reality, Robert was never this kind of person. After coming to the island, due to loneliness, his mental health deteriorated. Loneliness, the death of his wife, and deep depression turned him into this person. He was not a killer by nature. He was a good man. Gruner realizes that the creatures never wanted to fight. They only wanted peace. Gruner killed them only to show himself as powerful, and now he realizes his mistake. That is why he surrenders himself before the creatures, and within moments, they kill him. David locks himself inside the lighthouse. Time passes like this, and after 1 year, a government officer arrives on the island along with a new weather officer. Now the new officer has to perform weather monitoring duties on this island. When the captain asks David about the previous officer, David tells the same story, that he went toward the water and never returned. The new weather officer also thinks that David is Gruner. David does not correct their misunderstanding. He quietly goes and stands on the balcony without saying anything, because now he also does not want to leave this island, just like Gruner. Meanwhile, Anarius is happy with her family. Now they are no longer afraid of a man like Gruner. They can live freely on the island as well as in the sea. And with this, the story comes to an end. If you like the movie, please subscribe and hit the bell icon.